Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to my channel, switch on the notification bells so that you know I am releasing another video. Notification bells is really important because YouTube is not plugging videos the way that it used to. So it's affecting me and, well, not just me. It's affecting other people as well, and I'm talking about other creators. So it's always a great help if you can do that. Thank you very much in advance, and thank you to everyone who's joined me already on this channel. I cannot run it without you. Today is Doctor Who Sunday. That means we're kicking back and we are relaxing and we are not covering any of the woke news today. We'll get back to the woke news tomorrow, and I'm sure there's crazy stuff that we will look at for sure. This week we are looking at school reunion, excuse me for saying it like that, I cannot say that word properly, which was voted by you, the subscriber. To vote on the current poll, please head on over to the post page where you will find it. I release a new poll almost every Saturday at 10 a.m. and I release the results on a Friday. And I will also ask community questions so I can get feedback to feature comments in the reviews, and I will naturally, of course, feature 3 today. School Reunion was written by Toby Whithouse and it was directed by James Hawes. It aired on the 29th of April 2006 to 8.3 million people. The Doctor and Rose are on Earth. Mickey has called them back to go and investigate some strange going on at the high school. Jeffrey Vale High School is run by the headmaster, Mr. Finch, who had appeared at the school a few months earlier. Suddenly, over half the staff got sick with flu and left. The children start excelling at exams and their knowledge. They're following a special diet that is compulsory and assigned by the headmaster, but all this is too strange. It caught Mickey's attention, so the Doctor agreed to investigate. He poses as a teacher and finds that Mickey is correct, that something was not right at the school. But Mickey and the Doctor is not the only one investigating something strange going on. A former companion of the Doctor, Sarah Jane Smith, has also noticed this as well, and has decided to come to the school to investigate. It isn't long before she discovers that the Doctor is also there, and they reunite, much to the dismay of Rose and her jealousy. However, for Rose, it is a bitter pill to take when she realises that she may never travel with the Doctor forever. They have to put their differences aside and set to investigating what was going on and trying to put a stop to it. The Doctor discovered that the bat-like creatures are crediting, and they are indeed sleeping at the school. What is it that these creatures want these children for? And can the Doctor, Rose, Sarah Jane, and Mickey solve it in time with the assistance from K9? Straight off the bat, this is not a favourite episode of mine. I know this story is the one that won the popular vote, and in many respects I'm glad that it did win it. I know not many people like David Tennant at the moment. They don't like the things that he's been saying, and I have covered him on this channel in the past. However, when it comes to the stories that he has done, I will separate art from the artist and analyse it. So, I have some contentious issues to actually deal with in this story, but I will start off with the positives first because it does have its positives. My list of positives outweigh my list of negatives for sure. So, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the young lad that played Milo, the little boy. In one of the early scenes in this story, the teenager, we see the Doctor questioning the students about physics, and I will say that the lad playing Milo was impressive. He doesn't have a lot to actually do in the story, admittedly. We only have one child really that has a lot to do, but well, I keep saying child, I mean teenager, but this teen, well, I fully believed him. You know, sometimes that children and young people, well, they're difficult to believe when it comes to acting because it's all to do with the life experience and the fact that they don't always connect to experience. The acting world is something that comes a lot more natural to someone when they are older. But this young lad had a lot to recite in a very short space of time. He did it so quick. He was going so fast. I thought he was going to start rapping. It was impressive. And everything that he was reciting with absolute dedication behind his eyes was outstanding. He had to do a lot of complicated numbers and a lot of difficult phrases. And I remember when I had to do my Royal School of Church Music Award, I had one of those types of tasks. I had to read from the Bible because that's part of what makes up the Royal School of Church Music Award. And it was one of the most complicated things I had ever read. And I was about 12 at the time, and I had to read very long names indeed. And it was very difficult. And I had to do it slowly as well, because obviously it had to be clear so people could hear it and understand what I was saying. Well, this lad's diction, I don't know who worked on it with him, whether it was the director or whether it was someone at home, but his diction was so good. Sometimes children and young people's pronunciation can be a little bit off, but he really did do well. He definitely worked on it, and I'm commending this job that he has done. I'm not even sure if I could do that nowadays. I think the closest that I got was singing Not Getting Married Today from Company by Stephen Sondheim, and that is notoriously difficult. So this is set in a high school, which we know that's the reason why it's called School Reunion. So obviously we know it's going to be set in a school. Children and teenagers, they generally do make things more terrifying. I think there's a shot that's in the computer room, and it's one of the early camera angles that we get with them zoning out and doing all this fast, chaotic typing. If you actually look at it, then you will see that they are barely blinking. There's something pure and innocent about children and young people that when it comes to something scary happening, it's more terrifying. I don't know what it is that they do, but children can do scary really well. But yes, the blinking is something that I want to actually note. Now I'm going to talk about Anthony Head, or as you would know him in the US, Anthony Stewart Head. Even this comment agrees with what I have to say about Anthony Head. All the pieces matter said, a fun episode, great to see Sarah Jane back and how it impacts on Rose, and a solid performance from Anthony Head. The blinking was something that I've written down twice. The children were not blinking when they were zoning out in the commuter room, but much later on in the story, Mr. Finch, played by Anthony Head, is in the swimming pool, or stood by the poolside, I should actually say, and he's talking to the doctor, and that was one thing that I noted about his performance in that entire scene. And in actual fact, through the majority of the story, I didn't see him blink, unless I actually blinked and missed him blinking. I definitely didn't see him blink. Now, I do love Anthony Head. He's so good. Did you know, by the way, that he played Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror stage version? Anyway, just saying. Oh, and if you've never seen Repo, the genetic opera, he's phenomenal in that. I highly recommend it. He does evil really well. Now, I know a lot of people know him as Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I've seen him do various other things, and this is not necessarily one of my favourite roles of his. I think my most favourite is probably Repo, but in this, he matches what his hair is doing, and that is incredibly oily, incredibly greasy. He sets out from the start to make sure that you know very clearly that it is him that is the problem here, and that is absolutely brilliant. I find it incredibly funny in Doctor Who, actually, where sometimes they tell you at the beginning straight away who the baddie is going to be, and then other times they just leave you guessing. Now, we didn't know, obviously, that it was going to be the Quilladine, but we knew that our named star, Anthony Head, or Anthony Stewart Head, was definitely going to be the baddie from the very start, and he does make a very good baddie. Now, I will cover Sarah Jane and Rose a little bit later, because a lot of the comments do actually talk about Sarah Jane. I want to continue just talking about the teachers for a moment. One of the main storylines in this is that the teachers are aliens, and that is such a mediocre concept. It's unreal. And I know it plays into the fact that children and teenagers believe that their teachers are from another planet. And I know that because I used to believe that myself. And I had very little evidence to prove it. However, it's a bit childish. It wasn't done in the goofy way, but the idea behind it was childish. There were so many more things that I believed at school that were way more scary than my teachers being aliens. And I'm sure that they could have played more off of that, perhaps like something, I don't know. I used to believe that our girls' toilets were haunted. So maybe they could have played off something like that, a haunting or something. But they went for the teachers are aliens and they are sleeping in school. Now, how do you feel about that for a storyline? And do you find the Krillitine scary? I'm sure a child watching it probably would have found it scary, but even Stephen L. Rees 2048 says this. Lovely to see Liz Sladen, but the episode was childish and very CBeebies. And I just so happen to agree. Now, obviously, I wouldn't have been watching this at the age when I would have been watching CBeebies, but I do remember CITV. And we had something called Goosebumps. The Goosebumps books were turned into a TV show, and that was terrifying. And then I think that's better than the concept of the teacher being an alien. Now, the story is creepy, don't get me wrong, and I do like it. The creepiness behind it, I do like that, but it's not terrifying. You're in a school setting, you have the ideal opportune moment to make something incredibly terrifying to make children not actually want to go to school the next day, and it just misses the mark. And yes, they did jump scares, but I just don't think that it was enough. I wanted more. It's one of those stories where the concepts are there, but it's not quite executed well enough. And Grant Mason 740 said this. The story or alien threat wasn't the best, however, seeing Sarah Jane back on the screen was magical. I can't really ignore it anymore, can I? We have to talk about Sarah Jane Smith, the return of one of the best companions. Now, my favourite companions from Classic is Tegan, and from New Who is Donna Noble 1.0, not so much 2.0. But I know a lot of people love Liz Sladen as Sarah Jane, and she is marvellous in this. By the way, just so I'm just interested, who is your favourite companion? Now, when she first returns, I bet that was a big shock. I'm trying to remember if it was actually announced that she was coming back or not, and I just can't for the life of me remember. Now, when you first see her walking down the corridor with Mr. Finch, it's like, yes, one of the greatest companions has returned, and it's safe to say that when David Tennant's doctor first sees her, his reaction of absolute joy I would consider to be very fitting for the Doctor, especially his Doctor. I think the Doctor loves the idea of the companions going and doing stuff for themselves and making themselves all amazing after they have left him, and I think this is what the Doctor would imagine Sarah Jane to still be doing all these years later. Liz does play her older, naturally, because, well, she is. However, I think she kept some of the quirks to the character that she had. She is jokey, and she's smart, and she's intelligent. She's grown up a bit, and she plays it in the way. And her reaction to the TARDIS in the school, the reaction of shock, almost fear in some respects. I love it. I love it. I would ask you to compare the two companions. Like, who do you think is better, Sarah Jane or Rose? But I would say that it's very difficult to compare a classic companion and a new companion because they are different, and the premise for Rose is extremely different. They were going to do the love story, which I think is really what they wanted to do to get the female viewers in and make it a little bit more soapy in many respects. However, this is what ruins Sarah Jane's character a little bit. I think it was perfectly well within the character of Rose to be jealous when she finds out about Sarah Jane having actually travelled with the Doctor. Her jealousy, however, is petulant and very childish. I didn't really think it fitted in that respect. Maybe it was just the acting choice. I don't think it fitted in very well with the character at all in that respect, but the jealousy does make sense. How it was written or performed probably wasn't the best way to do it. In many respects for Sarah Jane too, although Sarah Jane doesn't really play any jealousy, there was an implication that Sarah Jane was in love with the Doctor, and I don't like that. You know what I think though about hanky-panky in the TARDIS. I'm a big no with the Doctor, because I see the Doctor as asexual. I don't like how they end up fighting over the Doctor for no real reason whatsoever. Making these comparisons, having a go at each other, makes absolutely no sense in my mind whatsoever. If it does in yours, that's fine. It's very out of character for both of them. But I do not believe for 1 minute that Sarah Jane loved the Doctor. If anything, it would have been platonic, and this is really my main contentious issue with this story. The whole jealousy aspect and the romance aspects of this particular story were not needed. Fine, there may be a little bit of jealousy going on there. All right, okay, I'll accept that. But Rose is actually, in my mind, pretty easygoing in many respects. So it didn't actually make a lot of sense for her to rear her ugly head like this. And I'm not calling Rose ugly, but, the behavior was ugly. I know they eventually get over it, which is good, but I just don't like the implications behind it. I think it changes Sarah Jane's character, and it puts something there that was never there to begin with. Even the fact that she was angry that the Doctor had left her and that making out she was standing there for ages, but he actually does explain clear as day that he couldn't take humans to Gallifrey at that time, and he says it back then as well. Now, one character that does make an epic return, just whilst I'm thinking about it, is K9. I adore K9, my favourite tin dog. Oh, I love K9. He's a legend, honestly. I know he was problematic for a lot of people, but I just said, I love him. I love him. I need my own tin dog. But enough said, I just got excited that he came back. Now, my biggest question, though, with regards to K9 is something that I noticed when Mickey crashes the car through the window. He leaves K9 in the car. But how does K9 actually get out of the car? K9 doesn't leave the car when the car goes through the window. That aside, it is really good to see K9 back. And he is the hero in this story. He saves them all. He is the one that shoots the oil canister and blows up the school. What a legend. What a hero. I sidetracked a little bit, so I just briefly wanted to mention K9, but I just want to go back to Rose now. There's something in this story that I actually do really like when it comes to Rose's jealousy, and that's the hard realization lesson that she has to learn from the Doctor. She obviously knows at this point he can regenerate, having seen him regenerate from 9 into 10, but I don't think she knows just how old he is, and it's the lesson of he will always get older, but he will regenerate, whereas she will get older and she will die, and that's painful for him. And I think this lesson helps her snap out of her mood, and it was an important lesson for her to learn, and I think it's an important lesson for the viewer to learn as well, especially those who are wanting the love story. Companions come and go. The Doctor should theoretically stay the same, other than changing his face and regenerating his body. I like it though because it snaps her out of her stinky attitude, and it really was stinky. Now, the resolution was too quick, but in this case, I actually don't mind the resolution. A lot of the issues that I have surrounding New Who is the resolution is always too simple, nearly always too simple, and it's too obvious. I would say now it was obvious because it was the chips. It's always the chips, isn't it? Why is it always the chips? However, it sounded incredibly intelligent. And yes, it was the oil. And all they had to do was get K9 to blow it up. But the script that led up to it, it's a Scasis paradigm, universal theory to crack the code, and they will have control of the building blocks of the universe, time, space, and matter. The children are the computers. The oil from the chips is making them smarter. They are after the children's imaginations, in particular the souls, in order to crack the code. And the reason why they are using the children is because the Krillitine are now allergic to their own oil. Whilst it was a very quick resolution, it sounded incredibly intelligent. The story is probably mid at best. It is childish. The themes behind it are childish. The aliens aren't really all that scary, but the return of Sarah Jane and K9 are really what make this story worthwhile. And naturally, of course, Anthony Head or Anthony Stewart Head, depending on where you're from, shines just like he shines in any role that he does, really. And I think it was a really good way of bringing Mickey into the TARDIS, actually. Now, I like Mickey a lot, and I think he was underused in this story for sure, because obviously you've got Sarah Jane and K9 back. You need to use those two as well. But the advantage of introducing him into the TARDIS makes it perfectly clear that he is not that tin dog companion that he is made out to be. He's not a dunderhead. He is someone who is worthwhile and is a lot smarter than that. And really, he really is. You watch him grow throughout the series, and in his next episode, his next story, he's brilliant. Anyway, let me know what you think. Chat about it, don't shout about it. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you tomorrow for more crazy woke news at 4 p.m. Bye bye.